Top of the afternoon to you, Griff and the Cigar Club family.
Top of the afternoon to you, Pew.
What is up, Cigar Club family? Welcome.
Fine. June 29th.
It is a hot, sweltering June 29th. Welcome to the June Box Drop Live. I'm Pew, and joining me, as always, is Griff, and we have a very special guest with us today. We're going to bring on later. You all know him. Oh, God. Inhaling. We got Vlad with us later today. Oh, my God. It's one of those days, Griff. We were a little sloppy on the podcast earlier. Carrying over to the day.
Yeah.
I'm going to blame the heat.
It's just one of those days we can't really speak. We can't really think.
Tongue swollen. It's the end of the week.
Which leads to a complete shit show.
It's going to be great. But if this is your first time joining us, The Box Drop is a monthly live show where we discuss all things cigars. This week's episode, we're going to be smoking the Somm BDX with none other than the man himself, Vlad
Stojanov.
Welcome. You nailed it. Welcome, everyone. There he is, looking good. Real quick, we got Stacy in chat. Took a half day so she could watch The Witcher, but joining us first. Appreciate that. We got my lost interest, Steve Wood. Griff, you want to show a little thigh, maybe? Get him excited. LaMarcus, thanks for joining us. It's good to be here. Vlad, thank you for joining us. Thank you for this amazing cigar. How are you doing, buddy?
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm doing really well. It's a nice, beautiful 100-some degrees in Vegas. Not a cloud in the sky, and obviously I'm being popular right now, so call later.
Thank you for silencing your phone for us.
I'm always joined by the flamingo that people are always worried about.
It's good to see. Haven't seen the flamingo since the podcast.
I know, right? Like every time I jump on a live, there's at least one person that's like, "Hey, what's going on with the flamingo?"
I didn't want to tell you. That's really why we brought you on here. Is we just wanted to make sure health check on the flamingo with that 112-degree weather. It's summertime. You've been busy with making cigars, boxing the cigars. I know your hand's involved in pretty much every step of the process. So it's good to have you back.
And it's really exciting because you guys, basically everybody who was part of the Cigar Club ended up getting a pre-release. So the general public won't get this cigar up until the second or third week of July, depending on how you count that week of PCA.
Yeah.
Everything will be in the country. This was shipped directly from the factory to you guys. And this entire experience with making that particular cigar has been eye-opening, really, primarily because I don't love broadleaf, for one. So for me to make a broadleaf centric cigar on top of using San Andreas wrapper, which again I have to be in the mood to smoke for, and in a box press 6x60, I did not ever think I'd do that, but we had to reblend it a little bit, obviously because of the size, and actually has more of that Honduran broadleaf. And it's, how should I put this? I mean, it's a very interesting thing to have people who generally don't smoke that format for whatever reason, whether they're, yeah, baby, Casio.
What time is it?
It is 1:05 actually.
Good.
I love my G-Shock. It's such a design icon. It's such an indestructible watch. Sorry. We talked about this just before the show, like ADD, right? Squirrel.
Yeah, you're good.
Squirrel.
There you go.
Okay.
Really doing this in a 6x60 box press. It's really strange to see people who don't smoke that format tell me this is the one they like the most out of the three, and it's my personal favorite.
Really?
I think that sweetness and the uniqueness of Honduran broadleaf really shines through. This is also a unique cigar because, to my knowledge, there's only one more cigar on the market that uses it, and that is going to be the Alec Bradley double broadleaf.
Mm-hmm.
However, in there, and this isn't, I think it's a good cigar. This isn't a criticism of it. However, it is built around Connecticut broadleaf primarily, and then the Honduran one is mostly used as a seasoning, if you will.
Sure.
As opposed to here, where the Honduran broadleaf really is the focal point of the blend. So for the profile, right? This is a pretty unknown tobacco because it's only been grown, I believe, for the last 3 years. Don't quote me on this. I believe that's at least what I was told. Basically, they planted it in 2020. And this is from the first harvest, right, that was usable. So all the cigars were rolled, pardon me, all the cigars for the initial BDX were rolled in June of last year. Everything that you're enjoying now has been rolled in December. I really wanted to highlight the Honduran broadleaf. And just because it's new and different, you haven't had a chance to try this. Profile-wise, if you love bourbon, and I know you guys do,
Yep.
It almost gives this like weeded bourbon sweetness to it.
Yeah.
The sweet grains, also walnut. Really, for me, it's like pecans and like black walnut really come through and shine. There's like innate sweetness to it,
Yeah.
and it's not overpowering, right? It balances out the cocoa and the earth and the leather that you get out of San Andreas, which is present both in the wrapper and the filler. So with this, 90% cacao chocolate is really, really nice. However, it is going to be, right, it's not going to be sweet. It's primarily going to be towards the bitter side. So this was like, how do we make it, how do I kind of make it sweet without making it overpowering? And I think it worked.
Yeah, you've got to try to round it out and balance it. You don't necessarily want to go too far in the sweet direction or too far in the bitter direction. It's finding that sweet spot. And it's interesting because other than the Alec Bradley double broadleaf, with Griff and I absolutely love and really enjoy that cigar.
Ooh, which format? Now comes
Grand
the
Corona.
real question. Which format do you like the most?
Grand Corona.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I see a man of culture. I see you right there.
Griff, no hesitation on that one. The Honduran broadleaf in this cigar, when you point it out, I would love to smoke a purito of that Honduran broadleaf to really be able to pick that out as I smoke this cigar. But when you said walnuts, and I literally was smoking and thinking walnut, it's almost a nut that's been just slightly over toasted, not necessarily burnt, but starting to be on that edge of that burnt where it's some of that bitterness that you were describing there.
You guys know your nuts.
Came out right away. I do.
I was like, I called myself right. I was like, oh, I gotta tame this down. I forget we're live.
Nope, let them fly.
No, you guys really know your nuts. So are we all smoking a different size? I got the Robusto because I could not find the other. So I panicked and I just grabbed the box.
Yeah,
you
so
got
we're
the
all
Toro?
apparently smoking 3 different sizes.
Cool.
The Toro
I
is
followed
a
the
nice little midway point between the two of them, right?
Mhm.
For me, the sweetness in the Robusto is a nice complement, but it's not the driving factor, right? In the 6x60, it definitely is the driving factor. And for the Toro, it's kind of like a midway point, right?
Yeah.
You get the cacao, the dark chocolate, the cacao, the earth, the leather, all of these things that come from Honduran broadleaf, the milk chocolate that you get out of jalapa that's used as a binder and in the filler, and then that weeded bourbon / grains. Someone said Lucky Charms once, and I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't go that far, but it's definitely cereal sweetness.
Sure. Can you give the full breakdown of the cigar wrapper binder filler?
Yeah. So outside you have San Andreas, aged for 3 years, obviously Mexican.
I'll
Then you
be
have
confirming your information.
jalapa, 3 years as well for the binder, and then filler is Mexican San Andreas, 3 years, jalapa 3 years, and then 2-year broadleaf. 2-year broadleaf from that initial harvest. I think it's something really, really different, really unique, and again, I like the transparency of it, right?
Yeah, me too.
Smoke and mirrors can be applied in this industry, just like a lot of other industries. This one specifically, the watch industry. But I like the transparency. I put exactly when those cigars were rolled, exactly how many boxes were made. Yeah, there's obviously a little bit more bundles. Okay, so funny thing, because you guys bought most of the and again, these were only done in runs of 5,000 cigars. So another 3,000 Robustos and then 5,000 Toros, 5,000 6x60s. So you guys got a big chunk out of it. And I already ordered the boxes. So now we're in a situation where there's 400 boxes made, but only, little over 2/3 are going to get used.
We appreciate you, allowing us to introduce this cigar to the Cigar Club family first, before even PCA, before, obviously a national release. That is one of my favorite things to do, is be able to bring something in before anyone else can get their hands on it and kind of I don't know, give them that PCA experience where, you know, at PCA, we're obviously smoking a bunch of new blends that haven't hit market yet and getting excited for it. It's always fun to be able to introduce a new cigar to everyone and before, you know, anyone else gets to smoke it.
So a part of this conversation is asking the sommelier himself any type of question you can ever think of. Steve, I can answer this one for you.
Well, two things. I made this, right? And when I say I made this, I do want to qualify this statement, right? The Somm Premier crew, I was guided by Hendrik Kellner Jr. He guided me. I told him my vision. He made a couple of samples and he nailed it. He just reinterpreted my vision. This one, you guys have had Sebastian and Brian on here, right? Perfect.
No, probably not. I mean, no.
Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Sebastian Decope and Brian are partners in Cavalier, right? The cigar with the gold foil. This comes out of their factory in Honduras. And the way this cigar was made, we literally sat on this kitchen table and I smoked the Puritos, you know, jotted my notes down, thought about it and said, you know what, let me try if I can do something with this. I really like it. I think it's very interesting. It tells a different story. I wanted to add to the conversation instead of okay, I'm going to make San Andreas with Nicaraguan binder filler or whatever, right? Make the 700th blend that uses the same components. Obviously, it's kind of like beer, right?
Sure.
You'll do, you know, within that San Andreas Nicaragua blend, you have everything, right? There's so much range. No different than if you say, oh, it's an IPA. We're like, cool. What did you use in the IPA? Did you age it? Did you add any more stuff to it? How many IBUs? Blah, 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 blah. So I thought, okay, I'm going to use something that nobody has really used, and I think I can make it shine. And I literally rolled it. If you guys give me maybe 30 seconds to a minute later, I'll find the actual picture. Rolled it. It looked like a really, really badly rolled dolma, right? Stuffed grape leaves. Mm-hmm. I lit it up, took a puff, and I'm like, I think here. I'm like, Brian, you want to try it? He tried it. He's like, I think there's something here. So we had the pros roll it. They made 5 samples, and it was myself, Brian, Jack, Sebastian, and the master blender roll. We smoked it, and we're like, this is great. And I'm like, perfect, done.
Easy enough.
So this truly is my creation. So at that point, you know, if anybody does have an issue, they can talk directly to me. I can't. There's no hiding behind it. As far as how I remember it, well, I made it, right? You tend to remember what it is, and then it also helps, right? I distribute a number of different brands, so a good way to sell is you need to know everything about the product.
Yeah,
I need to know the aging. And again, because I know what components are in there, what's the aging for those, where did they come from, et cetera, I can build a flavor profile in my head, right, from my mental Rolodex, and I can always, bring it closer to people, if you will.
Yeah, you have. When we had you on for the podcast before, I think we got into the weeds of talking about memory and kind of that whole aspect of it. I know you're a big person on reading that, and you know, since you do distribute multiple brands and you've been in the industry, you're also a sommelier, so you have more than just wine knowledge or cigar knowledge in your head to be able to specifically recall these things. You know, like you said, it's part of your job, so it makes it a little bit easier. But
when it comes to appointments and stuff like that, unless I put it in the calendar, ain't no one remembering that. Where are my keys?
So, Ramsey, you had it up below over here earlier. Throughout the show, be sure to drop questions in the chat for Vlad, for us. Let us know what you're smoking. You enjoy it. We will have a giveaway at the end of the show for a 5-pack of the Somm BDX 6x60 that most of you should have in your hands right now. If you don't, shame on you. But he's going to run the Wheel of Destiny at the end of the show. We're going to select a winner. But
I'll add one more. I'll add a box of BDX Robustos.
Holy crap.
And I'll include one test blend in a Petit Corona.
Damn.
That's probably never going to get released. That's just for me. And I don't think it's ready. I don't think it's where it needs to be, but it'll be something interesting.
There you have it, everyone.
If you want me to make that box less valuable, I can also sign it.
No, yeah, you got to sign it.
Yeah, you got to sign it.
I wish you signed mine, but nothing here. So
hey, man, at least you got those boxes.
I know. I may bring it to PCA so you can write me a little love letter.
Oh,
how sweet.
But only if you unbutton your shirt, I'll sign your chest.
Yeah, well, it's getting hot enough. That'll probably happen.
It is hot.
Steve coming in with another question. When you have the pros roll the first test sample, do you roll it in different sizes?
So, no. I rolled it in a Robusto, mostly because that's where I wanted to see what the blend is going to be like. And then the reason why the Toros and the 6x60s took a little bit more is we played around with it a little bit in the blend. So the 6x60 actually has 2 Honduran broadleaf fillers, right? Which is why that innate sweetness, there's more room to work in there.
Mm-hmm.
And mostly I wanted to see how it's going to perform in a classic size, right? So if I have to choose, when it comes to blending, it comes down to usually either the master blender has a preferred size, whether it's a Robusto, a Toro, a Corona, or something else, where they kind of figure it out. And then this is going to sound like a criticism, and it isn't. So really, when something like that is being done, the real question is, will you go back to the drawing board and try to recreate the blend to kind of do the same thing that it did in the 5x50?
Mm-hmm.
Or will you just, expand it to the size and call it a day? Now, if you're doing 5,000 cigars, then I can afford to take 2-3 months trying to figure out the blends. But if you're running a factory that's making stuff 24/7 and you spend 3 months trying to nail that blend, that might cost you hundreds, if not millions of dollars. So, I get it. And the easy way to catch this is, if you've ever smoked a blend and say the Robusto or the Corona smokes better than anything else, that typically tells you that it was blended to that size and then expanded to the other ones. And this isn't right. Like, it's just doing it super small boutique-y setup versus making an actual production thing.
Sure.
The other thing is I sat on these for 6 months, primarily because I don't want to rush it. I think that it needs time to rest.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to do the what the French do is, right? Like, they'll sell you one and be like, hey, this is going to be great in 2032.
Exactly.
So I was 15. Like, hey, this is going to be ready. And then the name obviously refers to Bordeaux, or BDX, which we use as a shorthand, mostly when we're being nerdy about wine. But BDX is right, like, just kind of refers to the other the famous wine region.
With this much broadleaf and aged tobacco, how much did that original Purito or the original test blend kick you in the ass? Because I imagine this fresh without that age that you let it go through would be quite potent.
Honestly, not at all. And here's why. The Honduran broadleaf, which I was really, really shocked. And I'll just make it a simple scale, right? On a scale of 1 to 5, flavor-wise, it was a 4, 4.5. Strength-wise, it was 1.5, maybe 2. So it was just purity of flavor. And I really, really fell in love with it. For me, usually broadleaf, I'm assuming because it's the way they farm it, they age it, they treat it. The Connecticut broadleafs typically are going to be on the higher end of the spectrum, right? Like your medium full to full stuff. And again, it could be because it's stock cut, because all the right, like, or that's the blending style is, right? Like, I would love if anybody can mention a cigar that's a Connecticut broadleaf that's like light to medium. I would love to experience that. I personally don't think such a cigar exists, and if it does, I would love to smoke it just for my own appreciations.
Yeah. I do have a question before we get to Lamarcus's question in chat, because I think it's a really good one. I love that this is a soft box press at 6x60. I've smoked hard box presses at 6x60s, and they do not sit well in the mouth. This one, it makes it not smoke like a 60 ring gauge.
Vlad, stop it.
More of a 56 to 58. Great decision.
again, I refer to the factory's expertise, right? It's kind of like going to a French chef and saying, "Hey, can you make a beautiful interpretation of a classic Italian dish?" Like, yeah, they could probably do it, but like, why not ask him to make escargot instead?
Yeah.
Right. And Cavalier has a plethora of different box presses, and they're typically on the softer side. So I just deferred to their expertise and said, "Hey, this is how I would like it to be."
Mm-hmm.
And that was, and I personally love softer box presses. That being said, there's a beautiful cigar with such a sharp box press you could cut yourself on the edges. Lamarcus asked about the smaller ring sizes.
In recent years, why do you guys think smaller engaged cigars like the Corona, Lonsdale, etc., have decreased in popularity?
So I actually believe, I don't have any data on this. This is the feels, bro. My feeling is that they've actually increased in popularity.
I was thinking the same thing.
This is how I would classify it. I make the comparison to wine because I've spent longer prioritizing that than doing the cigar business. But there's been a shift that started maybe about 15 years ago, right? Between new people coming in, younger people joining in, and just expanding more. So typically you'll gravitate towards the classic sizes, right? Like your Robustos, your Toros, and then maybe you'll go all the way up to 6x60. 6x60 obviously has it's a value proposition, right? Like you get more cigar for your money. But as your palate expands and your experience expands, I think you'll be more open to trying smaller sizes, different sizes. You want to learn more about it. And I'll make the comparison with the wine, right? Like pulling it back to the wine. 15 years ago, you would struggle to sell most of the stuff that's really popular right now, right? Like 15 years ago, nobody cared about Beaujolais. It was me and maybe 4 other people in the world, like wine world. So today you have Beaujolais Crus that are selling for like 40, 50 bucks retail. This was 15 years ago. This was like $6.99 retail or like $8, right? So very, very, and then as obviously popularity increased, people ended up being more interested in that. Spain is also, or has been, having a resurgence because, again, fruit forward wines, usually medium bodied, very, very easy way to make the switch. And whenever someone's interested in exploring old world, and I ask them, what do you drink? And they're like, Napa. And I'm like, okay, cool. We're going to take you from Napa, put you into Spain. And to push that into cigars, right? If I made a cigar that was, this is familiar, right? The flavor profile is familiar, but different, which is how you introduce it to people. In the Premier Cru, you had the Zimbabwe, the BVS, right? And Zimbabwe tobacco, there's a cigar that uses a large percentage of Zimbabwe in its filler. I've smoked probably 10 of those, but I didn't smoke them like, oh my God, this is so great. I smoked them where I'm like, this is weird. Like, I don't know where to put this. It's so left field that I have no basis of comparison. And it's interesting from a nerd standpoint, from a broader influence, right? Like, are people going to enjoy this? Probably not. Which I think commercially is a good idea not to make a lot of those. Look at like Culebras, for example. Like, yeah. Great. It's a novelty size, or the, 10 by or 100 by 10, right? Like, it's a novelty size. But there's people who'll smoke it and like have fun. And I'm super impressed that someone can actually make that cigar and have it burn. That's incredible.
Yeah.
But that being said, I actually think the popularity of those smaller sizes has increased. If you look at it, there's plenty of cigar companies that have now been releasing like consistently Corona Gordas. I personally love Corona Gordas, which again, if you go back and nerd out a little bit, the Corona Gorda or the Toro is really just a Corona Gorda. It falls within that scale, right? And if you go back to the Cuban versus the non-Cuban versions, we mostly do 6x52s rather than 48 by 5 and 5/6 or whatever it is, or 4/5. So I don't know what that is in freedom units. So basically,
so you're good.
Yeah, I think the popularity has actually increased. And then also we have to take into account that in the last 3 years, because COVID is actually a real boon for this, a lot of new people started enjoying cigars. And I do want to make this difference, right? Like they're not smoking them, they really are enjoying them.
Yeah.
Their palates have been expanding. But again, because all those new people came in, they're really going to gravitate towards something that's familiar, right? Your Robustos, your Toros. When someone thinks of a cigar, unfortunately, they're not thinking of a Lancero or a Corona.
Yeah.
Right. They're looking for Robusto or above. So, yeah, I mean, hopefully that kind of answers the question. My feeling is that it has actually increased. As far as sales, obviously sales, Toro, Robusto, and 6x60 are the top 3 best-selling sizes.
Yeah, I think I agree. I think I've seen a lot more manufacturers for, especially like a new blend or a new release. Usually, traditionally, you would just see Robusto, Toro, and maybe a 6x60 or a Toro Gorda or something like that. And now you're starting to see that initial line have some of those smaller ring gauges, whether it be a Lancero or a Corona Gorda, rather than it being a one-off, special release or small size. That's tending to be part of the core line on a new release. And so I know us here, a lot of us really do love those smaller ring gauges, but there are still plenty of people out there to the point that a 6x60 is still one of the top selling sizes. And I think it is in part due to a lot of the new smokers coming in. And then you still have people that have been smoking cigars since the 90s when those sizes were really the only sizes out there. So I'm glad to see it. I know personally, I enjoy the more complex nuances that you get with a better ratio of binder, wrapper, and filler with those, 48s to 50s.
100% agree.
Vlad, with this blend, do you specifically like the Toro out of the 3? Or is it time?
6x60, hands down. 6x60 is...
Maybe I remember you telling me that.
It's really, really good. I mean, I am shocked at now, right, like 6 months later, everything aged, how much I actually love it. And I honestly think it's the best size out of the 3.
Wow.
The Robusto needs that emergency inch that everybody kind of needs, right?
Yep.
The Toro is just right. Well, I mean, all right.
Most of us need the emergency inch, okay, Vlad?
All right. The Toro, right? I'm happy with my Toro. Like, it works. The Toro is good, but the 6x60, honestly, because of that soft box press, I actually think it smokes like a 6x54. Honestly, that's just my personal opinion. I have no data to back this up. This is, take it for what it is. I personally think it's the best out of the 3.
So, Pew, you've smoked the Robusto and now the Gordo.
Yep. I'm right there with you. What I assume is the Honduran broadleaf is so pronounced. It's so noticeable. It doesn't overshadow anything, but it is the top note that you're getting with the cigar. And it's, to your point, it's completely unique. I've always said Honduran tobacco has the best room note out of any other tobaccos. And if you were smoking this cigar in a lounge or someone was walking by, they're going to go, wow, that smells good. And I account that to being the Honduran tobacco.
I saw one more question. It was something. There we go. My opinion is no. What's everyone's opinion? Dipping their cigars in liquor.
Horrible.
My opinion is no.
Horrible.
Pass for me.
Why would Cigar Club even ask that? Bastard. Horrible question. Saw a video of Arnold doing it with tequila. Oh, interesting.
Yeah, he
just drink the video.
He talks how he was smoking cigars with someone, and they took his cigar, they brushed it with tequila. I don't know I forget what they used. And then he smoked it, and then he took it, and then he dipped the end in it, and he's like, this is the only way that he enjoys it. I just don't.
I've not seen that.
I'd rather have them separate and allow me to decide how much of each that I would want.
I agree. I mean, look, I remember serving a First Grove Bordeaux 1982, and someone ended up mixing it with Coca-Cola. And everybody's like, I can't believe this. And I'm like, look, he paid for it. It's his. If he decided to throw the whole bottle in the trash, it's his right.
That's true.
If that's whoever's personal preference, I have nothing against it. I personally will never do it. If I'm in a paid environment where someone's paying me and asking me to do it, I have no problem with that.
Sure.
I won't comment on it if someone does it. I mean, it's their own personal preference. And while preferences should be discussed, I don't think they should be judged, right? Similar as Ted Lasso said, it'd be curious, not judgmental, right?
There you go. Oh, we've got the video pulled up here.
On that.
From the humidor, and the guy took it out of my hand and he says, whoa. Before you go and smoke the cigar, let me do a little bit of spicing it up. He took a cedar from the humidor, he went and he poured some tequila and took this cedar, went inside the tequila and started stroking the cigar. What he did was he rolled it, he lit it. He went through this whole song and dance. Then he grabbed it out of my mouth again. And now,
don't grab a cigar out of my mouth.
And he put it into the tequila. Just like that.
Jeez.
Oh my God. I just learned something in 1989. And since then, I've been doing that for guests. You have to admit, that's cool.
I mean, maybe we need to try it.
I think it's a great thing. Well, we should on a podcast here.
Just from a technical standpoint, you're going to be wetting the wrapper. So that might impact combustion. Obviously, depends on how much you're going to put on there, but just kind of the cigars are hydrophilic, so they actually take moisture from the ambient atmosphere. So I don't think it's a good idea from a technical standpoint. From everything else, I mean, I will say, dip tequila in your cigars, but I mean, I'd never do it. I don't know.
If Arnold, granted, if anyone's like, hey, try this, I enjoy it, I'm going to do it.
Look, if I was sitting there and Arnold goes, let me prep the cigar for you, I'll be like, cool, yeah, absolutely.
You can dunk. Arnold's the only one that I'd allow someone to rip a cigar out of my mouth. He could bury that thing in tequila, and
I think I could take him.
Right. I'd still smoke it. Sam, welcome. I saw that you weren't going to be able to join, but I'm glad to see
Nate said something
you were able to join.
He basically tried to kind of jerry-rig the infusion process. There's a couple of guys in the Middle East that do this. There's some company out of Switzerland that designed the whole infusion tube thingy. I don't know about it. I don't know enough. The closest thing I've had to an infused or a flavored cigar is, and it's a guilty pleasure, especially now after coming from Europe, is the Toscanello. The anise with cigar with a coffee in the morning is really, really good. My girlfriend Shannon really fell in love with them, and I've smoked one this morning, and it's just a fun experience. But as far as flavored cigars, not for me. I'm very grateful for what they do, which is they bring people into the sport, right? Yep. They open up the other stuff, and the fact that some people never go past that, I'm happy they found their happy place, and they don't need to go past that. Yeah. I personally choose not to, just because I don't enjoy the artificial infusions, and I also find them typically very overpowering, which again is just not my jam. I like the complexity, the nuance.
If it wasn't, I appreciate him as well for that, because if it wasn't for infused cigars, we wouldn't be here smoking cigars with us. I know he's a big Cuba guy in the beginning, and smoked them daily, and so if it wasn't for those, he wouldn't be here. He wouldn't be here with us.
Steve must be drunk. Dipping cigars in alcohol is bad. Not as bad as wearing your wife's hat on a podcast, but almost. Who the hell are you talking to, Steve?
He's throwing.
If it's aimed towards me, I'm telling Ramsey to remove you from the giveaway. You need to watch yourself.
I mean, look, I got the Mr. Worldwide look. Pew's okay.
You really do.
It's kind of 1 in 3 people over here.
It's only one of us wearing a hat here, Griffin.
Yeah.
And Steve never throws shade at my way, so I appreciate that, Steve.
He needs to clarify this, because this giveaway is not looking too great.
Maybe there's another podcast he listens to that someone was wearing their wife's hat.
Yeah, I'll happily remove you, Steve. Go ahead, test me.
I have seen, going back to the in a airtight container with booze or something like that. I've seen it, I think, on Reddit, the cigar subreddit. Someone where they do that, or they tried it. They've tried it with like bourbon, tequila. It'd be a fun way to know what you're infusing the cigar with. If you enjoy bourbon infused cigars, I imagine it's much less of that artificial potpourri infusion that you tend to get with a lot of regular produced infused cigars. It'd be a fun experiment. I thought about doing it just to see what it would do, but I think it would just almost ruin the construction of a cigar, because like you said, it'd be just too wet.
I don't know enough. I'm fully gonna say that, like, I don't know enough. I've never done it. I defer to people who do make a ton of flavored cigars for those questions, just because I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And if someone has more information, please let me know. I just never appealed to me. I never really wanted to do, but there's obviously is that knowing factor when you do stuff like that, and it should work. I mean, if you put it in an airtight container, just from that ambient osmosis, it should work.
LaMarcus, my wife has recently went away from smoking flavored cigars and has started smoking her way through my Villager Cream. Nice. Slowly get her on the path.
That's what I did with Bailey.
That's awesome.
Alex, what's up? Glad you could make it. Stacy, great question. Barrel-aged leaves. So you see a lot of barrel-aged tobacco, barrel-aged cigars. What are your thoughts on those? Do you have any particular
barrel-aged? Late Hour claims that a portion of the filler is aged in used Scotch barrels, and I do believe them on that. As to how much they impart, considering it's a blend of 5 different fillers, I'm going to go out on a limb and say not a lot. It's a cool marketing thing, though, and I think it does do its thing. When I was down in DR, actually, it's another blend that I've been working on, and we'll see where that happens. I did have a chance to try Havana 92 aged in rum barrels versus separate, and that would be used as a binder, and there's a stark difference. Because, again, you're using a single component in a single, if you have 3 levels, you're using it in the second level where there's a dominant change. Obviously, it wasn't apparent. It wasn't like, oh, my God, this is it wasn't like, oh, my God, this, tastes exactly like rum. Steve's like killing it. I'm sorry. I'm reading the comments.
Everyone's on me this afternoon. I'm sorry.
But it did have quite a bit of an impact. Oh, cool. Okay, from Darren. That's pretty cool. I think it could work. Again, I don't
know the name.
Know
Whiskey
enough.
Charles. That's fun.
I don't know enough, and I think there is using barrel-aged ingredients, barrel-aged tobacco versus using a finished product obviously imparts different things.
Yeah.
I think using the finished product, leaving it in a barrel with a finished product will probably impart more and be more apparent than just using the raw leaves, like not raw leaves, but I mean raw using tobacco, the actual raw materials, if you will.
Sure.
I think that'll be a lot more apparent. Obviously, it depends on the size, on the blend, on a plethora of different things. I think it's good. It is an older technique, like it's an old technique that's been used before. Similar to using things. I'm sorry, please remind me. The J.C. Newman one, Yagua, is that the name of it? Where they wrap them in banana leaves and just leave them as is, so none of them are like the same size.
I don't know that one. That's interesting.
So I've had them, and it's a centuries old technique at this point that's not really used. I personally thought it was a really, really cool idea. I think we should push some of the boundaries, or at least pay respect to tradition, because I get it infers what we should be doing.
Yeah.
And then we keep pushing the boundaries with being informed by what was done previously.
I think that's
rather than just go out and make a Zimbabwe burrito. Not that it's bad.
You have to find out. I mean, it could be, right? You don't know until you try, and if you can take something away from it, even if it doesn't produce anything.
Absolutely,
it may spark something in the future, or pave way for something down the line. I think of the Late Hour.
As Mythbusters said, what's the difference between science and fooling around? Writing it down.
Brilliantly said. Great show. late hour is the one that I enjoy the most, but I think also when I think of barrel aged cigars, I think of the Camacho lines that they have. I think time and a place. I have a box of late hours, and I thoroughly enjoy that cigar. That is by far my favorite of the barrel aged cigars or tobacco. It certainly ramps up those kind of cedary barrel notes, and super enjoyable. But I want to get a couple shout outs. We got a couple familiar faces and
late
new
arrivals.
faces. Some late arrivals. We got Mr. Snowcone. I hope that's your real name. Welcome. I saw Alex in. We got My Bourbon Journey coming in. Great to see you. Been a minute. See who else I saw in here. Sam.
I didn't know that guy was still around.
Sam. We got Noah. So shout out to everyone. Griff, you're already getting thigh comments. It's summer here. Glad to see the 5-inch inseams are still here.
Oh yeah. Sam, I'm drinking Tecate to answer your question.
Yeah. Oh, is it? See, there was a flamingo. I saw the flamingo question.
See, there he is.
Yes, Charles.
That's an original name.
So we got two of them. One's Charles, one's Camilla.
I don't have any statues.
I got some sourdough that has a name, and we name our houseplants. So
cool.
I'm with you.
Interesting.
This was like one of my favorite, spur of the moment purchases in Costco.
I'm a big namer. I name everything inanimately.
What is your yeast called?
So I originally said Levon Burton, and Bailey's like, no one's going to know who that is. Reading Rainbow Guy. So it's Levon James.
Interesting.
Sure.
And it's doing great in the garage.
I could use some yeast.
Hot as fuck. I'll send you our mother.
Bring some to Vegas.
You know what? I'll fly with it in Vegas, and let's see if that gets
cook some bread in Vlad's kitchen.
Hell yeah. I'll get the little mini, I got the little mini bakery that makes like 2 pounds of bread.
Yeah.
I'll bring it to the show floor and pay $400 a day for electricity.
Yeah. Hilarious.
If you could get that done, that'd be great.
What are your thoughts, Griff?
Do we want to talk about this?
We will in a second. Slow down. Oh. You haven't given us your thoughts. Vlad and I love this cigar. I'm getting a little nervous that he doesn't like it, Vlad.
I was told if I don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Hey, that's not how our relationship works. I was
about to say that's the first time he's ever done that.
That is true. You can see I like these. Oh shit.
Jesus.
I've got.
Well, you like them enough to drop them, obviously.
I've got 4 left. So this cigar is so unique, and the fact that every ingredient, if you will, is on the box. I love that. The age is on the box. Going into this cigar for the first time, which we did on the podcast, a
while ago,
whenever this came out, I was expecting it to be not only a flavor bomb but a strength bomb, and it's not at all. No. I mean, I still
not a strength bomb; it's a flavor bomb.
I still want to smoke this in the morning with coffee. Put that to the test because it'd be so unique in the morning, I think. But no, you guys are blabbering away. I'm just enjoying this.
I'm just making sure.
I wish I did have the Gordo because I'm having to slow down because I'm almost done. I don't know where my wife put the damn things.
Yeah, I'm amazed. I knew it was going to be good, but I didn't think it would be my favorite Vitola for this blend. And wow, the double Honduran broadleaf shines. It is wonderful, and I hope we start to see more cigars utilize Honduran broadleaf because I think it is my favorite out of the broadleaf family.
Yeah.
So this is the fun part with that. This is again story I've been told, so I'm just going to retell it. And if any portion isn't true, I mean it's not on me. So apparently it's very soil intensive from a growing perspective. So they need to rotate the crops. They can't basically plant it back to back.
Okay.
Which really means that they're going to get 2 to 3 harvests a year. So it won't be as widespread as the others. Just from an economic standpoint, it makes no sense, right? Unless you're charging a premium.
Yeah.
So I think it won't be as widespread. I think it'll be unique. I think it'll be a relatively small production, something on par with, I don't know, Ometepe or Peruvian Palo de Oro, right? Like things like that. That's more
boutique tobacco,
highlight it that you're using it rather than anything else. And obviously, it'll be quite a while before people experiment and figure out what they want to do. I mean, I have no idea if this is the best that Honduran broadleaf can do, right? Like that's the first harvest they grew. I mean, 5 years from now, once they figure out what it likes, what it doesn't like, how it's going to, it's very terroir specific. It's very, right, soil dependent, site specific, all these other things. And then obviously when you include the aging in the processes after farming, I mean, I have no idea if this is the best it can do.
Someone may find a different way to ferment
my perception. This blend might be, 3 to 5 years from now, and hopefully there's another 10, 15 cigars that have used it. Maybe it's a completely different flavor profile that they end up making with it, and that becoming the signature.
Yeah.
So again, it was cool to be on the cutting edge of using this. As to what it's going to do, I don't know. So I don't think it'll be as widespread just from that economic, right? Like the growing perspective. Because I think they've lost the second hardest. They lost a good chunk of it because, if not all of it, because of how intensive it was from a farming perspective, right? They just didn't know this is what it was going to require. So, we'll see more over the next couple of years, hopefully.
Random top of my head question, Griff. I know you're ready to ask about the crew. Like most Bordeauxs, they usually age really well. You've probably smoked. You have smoked this cigar more than anyone else in the world. Have you noticed from fresh right out of the box to maybe a few months or a year? I don't know how long this cigar was originally made. Have you noticed that this cigar potentially could age really well with the prevalence of that Honduran broadleaf, or is this something you think a year?
So that's a good question. Here's my take on aging, and again, there's no data behind to support it apart from my personal experience of smoking thousands upon thousands within those age ranges. I've left it to sit at the factory for 6 months post roll, right, before releasing it. So it's basically ready right out of the gate. As to what it gained over the last few months, honestly, I haven't noticed a difference. I still have the original run. I saved like 3 or 4 boxes for myself just so I can follow the trajectory. Yeah. I haven't noticed any differences in it. Nothing has faded out. Nothing has changed, right? There's no patina developing. My take is that typically you get that first development of the tertiary notes, right? Like secondary or tertiary notes that start developing. It's typically between 2 and 3 years, depending on the cigar, how it was aged. Then the second change will typically happen between 5 and 7. Then usually around 9, 10. That's typically when you get like noticeable differences. Then 10 to 12 and then 15 and above. And I want to kind of hedge this as well. 15 and above, I've probably had maybe 100 or so cigars total. And only one of them was like a full box of 10, right? Came from the same spot, aged the same way. And they were incredible. And they were actually Davidoff 2004 Davidoff Millennium Pyramids. They were exceptional, right? Like no strength, just purity of flavor, very complex, tertiary, right? Like from aging, still very much alive. As to what this cigar will do 3 to 5 years down the line, I don't know. I'm excited to see what they will. Yeah. I think they won't lose, right? Like they won't lose anything. Yeah. I'm excited to see what they'll develop. I also think that, again, for aging, I kind of look at it the same way with wine, right? Like you maybe want those medium to full strength cigars. I'm going with the idea. I'm making the 1-to-1 comparison with tannin, right? So if you're looking at red wines, tannin is a protein that's naturally found in wine. As it interacts with oxygen, it forms long polymer chains, i.e. they basically, under the influence of oxygen, they start making chains. Once those chains become too heavy to be suspended in liquid, they turn into sediment, and then they can't float anymore freely. They fall down to the bottom of the bottle, right? So that's when you open a 15, 20-year-old bottle, you'll see there's sediment in there. Good one.
He's a killer.
So with that, I think that this will age. I probably wouldn't put this down for like 10 years, mostly because what little strength it has, I think it'll fade away. Because I would put this as a 2.5, maybe 3 if I'm being generous, really, from a strength standpoint, right? Like just nicotine impact. But flavor-wise, I'd put this to like 4.5 to 5, right? Because it's very clear, very, very clean, very like what's going on. And I personally love cigars that really don't have a high nicotine content, because that means I can smoke a bunch of them without feeling the side effects.
Yeah.
The Somm, on the other hand, the Premier Cru one, I think that can go the distance. And I have exactly 7 cigars left. So I'm going to see what they're going to do. I think that can go the distance. And I think Hendrik has outdone himself on that one. So if you have them, please put some aside, because it was a very tiny run. I mean, over 50 years worth of aged tobacco combined.
Insane.
I think that's going to
is insane
and develop so gracefully.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Hellner. I think
Junior.
Thank you.
Hendrik.
Thank you. Jesus. It's a day. It's a damn Thursday, but the brain is already at the lake house here.
Wait,
I think
Thursday morning, Friday.
We're off tomorrow. Don't worry about
next
that.
week is a blur too.
Yeah, exactly. But to the point, I think this cigar, after like a year, I'm gonna have some set aside, and I'm gonna kind of come back to it in 6 months, a year, and just really see what the progression does. Because I'm curious, because I've never had aged or Honduran broadleaf that's sat post roll for an extended period of time. I guess that was the point of the question, just because I wanted.
If you can find any of those BDX Robustos, I don't. There's only like 10 spots that got them anyway. They should be actually the year's worth of age right now.
Okay.
They were released with 6 months, right? They were rolled.
I may have one. Yeah.
So if you have, you have the box. What am I talking about? Those are.
I don't know. I don't know if I have any left over in my box. I know Griff has.
So Griff, the cigars that you have, the BDX ones, they're a year at this point.
Okay. Well. Oh yeah, fuck. Rolled June 2022 on the box.
Yep. And you'll see it. There's a very, very distinct, like on the boxes, the ones that are coming for PCA, it'll say rolled December 2022, and it'll say this is the total production count, and that's it. So very easy to track. The Kellner ones were all numbered and rolled.
Yep.
August or April or something, one of the A months. I forget.
I love the transparency that you approach to this. This is one thing Griff and I've talked about on numerous podcasts is we crave the transparency from brands. We want, and I think the consumer these days wants as much information as they can about the product that they're investing their money into. Because I think nowadays we have a consumer that wants to be educated. They want to know everything they can about it, whether it's cigars, wine, bourbon, whatever it is. And so having that level of transparency on your end is down to when the cigars were rolled. So when you get a box, you know exactly how long, and maybe at your brick and mortar, if you're getting a cigar from it, you can look at the box and know just how long it's been sitting there and how long it's aged. And so I love that. Sam has a great question. Oregon or Sonoma Pinot Noir, and why is he Oregon?
Oregon. Oregon is probably the closest thing you can get to Burgundy. In fact, one of the most memorable wines I've had in the last 5 years, probably. I had it for New Year's with my girlfriend Shannon. We stopped by on like 30th of December, walked into a local cheese and wine shop that has master cheese sommelier, master cheesemaker, something.
Really?
Like a handful in the country. So I walked in and I saw Bergstrom. Bergstrom is a phenomenal producer from Oregon. It was like off 30%. And I look at it and it's a single vineyard, 2016 single vineyard. And I'm like, yeah, this is a no-brainer. I used to work for San Ysidro Ranch, and it was one of the 91 Grand Award recipients in the world. So we had a massive cellar of every single producer of note, including some really, really big and deep verticals. So Bergstrom was always allocation, right? Like we would buy whatever they offer us, we would buy it. because we knew people were out there, and we know these wines are built to last the distance. It was on par with either an exceptional Premier Cru out of Burgundy, like top producer, or a very, very solid Grand Cru. An incredible wine.
Do you have a favorite
Oregon
region
to me is really good.
Do you have a favorite region in Oregon for Pinot Noir?
West side.
I have favorite producers, rather, because some of them will source out of different, but Willamette will typically be the one. Or if you're going Bergstrom, obviously for the producers, but they have a couple of single vineyards that are like, actually for Pinot, I'll throw in Santa Barbara for like as to what my favorite region is. I've worked at it for years. I've been to most of the vineyards. I know most of the winemakers there. And I had the pleasure of drinking like 90s Santa Barbara County, right? Like predates everything. The Santa Rita, the single vineyards. I mean, I got to a point that I can probably nail 2 vineyards just by having them out of the glass, or 2 or 3 of the vineyards.
It's incredible.
Genesito always has that just phenomenal signature in there. Solomon Hills, one of the closest ones to the ocean. Cold climate, just impeccable. And then Santa Rita is Jesus, what's it called? It always has this. My brain just stopped. Put on the spot.
Welcome. We rubbed off on you a little bit with
it always has this
grape,
almost like coppery, like. And this is gonna sound weird, but bear with me. Almost like a blood note to it, like almost like coppery,
tin, metal.
Yeah, you're
like beer out of a bottle.
Yeah, yep. That's, or like iron. Really, yeah. What it really tastes like, and almost every single bottle I've had out of that vineyard. God, I know where the vineyard is. I can't remember. I remember the sign. I just can't remember the names. So yeah, I just really, Santa Barbara, Santa Rita, Santa Maria, the Santa Barbara County in general, Central Coast Pinots are incredible.
The sommelier certificate, you can get that online. I could do that tonight real quick.
I mean, you can get the Cigar Somm through Tobacco University, and then the other one probably self-study.
I'm talking about the grape one.
Oh,
the easy one that you have.
I think the intros are in person. They're not hard. I mean, they have like a 90% pass rate. It's really just an intro to like wine stuff.
We'll go knock it out this afternoon.
The level 2, the certified, I think it's like 30%. And again, if you have either hospitality experience and have worked at wine, it's not really difficult. I prepped my buddy in like 5 days. We sat down and I'm like, hey, really what you're learning here is, 10, 15 of the most known white and red grapes, like the classic signatures for each region and like the basics. And then certified to advanced is like a massive jump. One of my really big regrets is that with cigars overtaking, I really don't have the time or really to spend doing the service, tasting the wine, stuff like that. I really wish I would have taken my advanced again. I took it. I was just too busy. I didn't study enough, but I nailed the tasting and the service, but I was off on my theory.
Damn it.
It's really a commitment. So the passage rate goes 30% down to, at least when I took it, it was like from 30% for intro. Out of the 30% who pass intro, I think it's like 10% only go to advanced. And out of that 10%, only 10% pass, or it was like 12%.
Jeez.
And this is like 5-6 years ago, like 2018, 2017. I'm sure it evolved since then.
It's crazy.
And then out of all of those that pass advanced, like 10% go towards masters, and the pass rate is like 3%.
God.
So it's like brutal.
All right, we're getting the cue, getting the old hook from producer
Ramsey's got to go to the mall and go shopping.
We got a giveaway time.
Ramsey, please remove Steve, as I said earlier.
Chatting throughout this, you missed out. Spin the wheel of destiny. Let us know. Let's see who wins a box.
Wait. Before we do it, are we gonna do one person gets both, or we do 2 rolls?
You tell us. You want to do a $1 grand prize or 2 great prizes?
I say let the people decide. Let the people vote.
Now they're all going to comment.
Yeah, now, well, if you comment now, sorry, your time has passed. All right, we'll go 1 minute on the clock. 2 rolls, says Ramsey. We're doing it live. 2 rolls. First one for the 5-pack of the Somm BDX 6x60.
4th of July weekend.
Ramsey, write these down for me.
Hey,
Alex, congratulations. Shoot me an email, pew@cigarclub.com, letting me know that you won the 5-pack of the 6x60, and I will get that out to you today or tomorrow.
She better be on here.
She better be on here still. And then let's roll it again, spin it again. This will be for the giveaway from Vlad.
Not Steve. I can't read that from here.
John Z. John, shoot me an email.
Good job.
pew@cigarclub.com with your address, and I'll get that over to the one and only Vlad, who will get out a box of the...
I'll aim to send it out tomorrow, because if I try to send it out next week, that ain't happening.
Yeah. Next week's a blur for everyone. So we'll get that out to you as soon as possible, depending on when you shoot me the email. But once again, pew@cigarclub.com. Congratulations to our winners. Thank you all for joining us for another Box Drop Live. But thank you, Vlad, for being a part of this and letting the Cigar Club family get their hands on this 6x60 BDX before anyone else in the world. It is an honor to be able to bring that in.
Thank you, guys. Fun as always. I look forward to doing it again. Charles says hi.
Bye, Charles. Vlad,
Charles.
We'll see you in a week at PCA. I know you're going to be running around crazy for the next week, but hopefully you can have some fun this weekend. Stay hydrated because it's hot in Vegas.
Greg was like, no, just Iron Curtain, no. You should have added a dot at the end.
No, period.
I can't wait to see you, man.
Can't wait to see Vlad. I hope everyone has a safe July 4th.
You'll have a chance to try the PCA exclusive. I just
oh yeah, no, I just saw it.
Just back today.
I just saw that.
So it'll be some fun stuff. And Stefan's obviously there with his.
Can't wait.
Yeah, I can't wait to see all you guys.
Absolutely. Well, I hope everyone has a safe and wonderful July 4th. If you're part of the Discord, let us know what you're smoking this weekend. I'll be posting it. Till next time, everyone. Happy smoking.
Cheers.
See you guys.